Welcome to the Track Wars podcast, the one podcast that dares to answer the one question, the most important question in fandom, which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars, by going through both franchises in chronological release order. But sometimes we go a little bit off the beaten path and join the lines of pro-labor.
That is not uncommon, actually.
That is not... That is very uncommon. Very rarely are we pro-labor, but this week we definitely are. I am Kenny Madison, the Star Trek contingent. With me, as per always, is the co-host with the mo-host.
It's Aspen Webster. It's me, Star Wars fan. It's end all fans. That's not true. We've got some here that will probably got me beat.
Truly. I am exceedingly delighted to have the hosts of the Delusions of Grandeur podcast, Emily Goddick and Kelly Jones. Please tell me I said those names right.
It's Gaddick like attic.
Gaddick like attic.
Yeah, that's all right. No worries.
Oh my God. Can you make that? Is that like your Instagram handle? Gaddick like attic?
Mad Women in the Gaddick is my Blue Sky handle, which is the the Twitter methadone that I currently favor. So yeah.
Kelly,
don't worry.
Like
yours is closer than 90% of people who have ever tried to pronounce my name.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Which is unfortunate because I listen to the Delusions of Grandeur podcast.
I don't know that we say last names.
No, it's just in the credits, so you're totally excused.
Who listens to the credits?
No one.
Every time we do credits, I'm always like, God, I hope people listen to this because we still say funny things back here. Come on, listen to us. It's got little stingers. We're great. And also Kelly.
Speaking of
Jones is pretty good, right?
Yeah, I wish that I had a fancy name, but I don't.
It's beautiful.
Apparently, Scarlett Johansson is about to be Kelly Jones in an upcoming film where she is responsible for faking the moon landing. So Kelly Jones is about to be dead to me.
Oh no!
Of all the names in all the world, yeah.
Why?
Oh man, that's gonna look bad for you.
I've seen that trailer. I'm not sure how I feel. I don't like that trailer. I think.
No.
Okay, great. I'm not the only one. Great.
Absolutely not.
I'm confused by the trailer, but I will say it does have Anna, who I don't know personally, but is someone that does lots of stuff on Dropout TV. So a comedian based in LA, she is in that film, which brings me a lot of joy for parasocial relationship purposes. But otherwise, I'm bewildered by the trailer. Bewildered. And now I'm mad. So
yeah, I was like very excited there's going to be a NASA rom-com, honestly. I was like, oh man, we're back, baby. Like, but no.
Oh.
And I want to like it because I'm a fanning of Channing. Magic Mike XXL is one of my favorite movies of all time. Aspen can confirm that.
Sure.
And so I love seeing Channing in anything, especially like something set in the 1960s. But like, it's just not those vibes.
Yeah.
Those vibes, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like anything that plays into too common of controversies. People. What's
Conspiracy
the word?
theories?
Conspiracy theories. Yeah. Not real controversies, conspiracy theories. I'm like, guys, no, listen, calm down. It's real. So right now it feels
Buzz
dangerous.
Aldrin's going to punch you right in the face if you say it isn't. So.
Fucking will. My dude, my king. Anyway, Star Wars and Star Trek, we are talking about space, and that is on track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong was the first man on the moon, and Armstrong is what Union people are, as we cover both the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode Bar Association versus Star Wars Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, the first story by Kathy Beers, We Don't Do Weddings.
That's right. We're comparing books for you two. Well, an episode and a book.
Yeah,
we really strong armed you into this premise, so deeply appreciative.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Before we get too far into it, we like to ask our guests, what are your kind of origin stories with both Star Wars and, I guess, potentially Star Trek?
Okay, Star Trek. My dad was obsessed with the original series. Therefore, I love the original series. just love it. I don't know what else to say about that. I wanted to be Spock when I grew up. That didn't happen. Spoiler. And then I tried to watch Next Generation as maybe a 10-year-old, and the holodeck freaked me out so much because you couldn't tell the difference between reality and fiction, but you could still die in fiction. I was just profoundly confused and upset, and so did not watch that until I was in labor with my child, and then I decided, no time like the present, I'll just watch The Next Generation. And the Deep Space Nine episode we're going to talk about today is the first and only Deep Space Nine episode I've ever seen.
Oh,
I
so
thought,
excited.
for some reason, that it was the goofy one. Like, of all of the Star Trek series, I was like, that one, it seems like the most ridiculous. Apparently, that is incorrect. Apparently, it is dark AF. And so I am looking forward to diving into that later.
Oh, DS9 is perfect television.
Great. Yeah. I can't wait. And then Star Wars, like, I don't remember my origin story because I feel like it's just always been a part of me.
Yes.
But the origin story of my Star Wars relationship with Emily was that we both grew up on opposite coasts reading the Legends novels as they were released, and then finally met in our late 20s.
Yeah, I think
early
so.
30s.
Yeah.
And did that thing where
it's been a while.
Someone is like, I like Star Wars. And you're like, well, I like Star Wars too. And you sort of like circle around each other being like, how much can I trust you with my deep lore? And it turns out the same. And so for like 6 years, we talked about doing a Star Wars novels recap podcast. We tried a bunch of times. It never worked out. And then Delusions just fucking happened. And now it lives.
Yeah, it does. It's so true.
Alive.
Yeah, it's alive. I feel like I didn't realize that about your dad being a Star Trek fan. Our origin stories are remarkably similar. My mom, also a huge original series fan and a huge Next Generation fan. And I definitely remember watching that and Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman with her a lot as kids. But I didn't have like the same like fever for Star Trek as a kid that I did for Star Wars. I was like 8 when they re-released the original trilogy in theaters, and it like blew my tiny mind. And then I got super obsessed with them. I was reading all the books. As we said on the show, I somehow, I think through my friend's mom who worked for Chronicle Books, got a hold of a copy of the script for Phantom Menace before it came out.
What?
Yeah. I mean, like 2 days. It was not very long, but and then I read it, and my mom read it, and she was like really worried because she could recognize that it was bad, and was trying to like temper my expectations. But yeah, and then my mom, I moved back home to California. Kelly and I met in Charlottesville. I moved back home in the early days of the pandemic, so my mom and I rewatched like the original series and Next Generation, and then I started watching DS9. So that's my Star Trek journey. Yeah, and I've watched other stuff like that's mostly it. I guess what's the new one, like Strange New Worlds?
Yes.
Yeah. I've enjoyed that. I haven't watched Picard. I have
fine.
big Star Trek knowledge gaps. Yeah, it's mostly those three. So.
No, it's okay. I would like to thank Kenny for bringing 2 huge Star Wars fans on the podcast, thus proving that Star Wars is better than Star Trek.
End of
logically.
We can just go now, right?
Yeah.
We did it. Answered the question.
I mean, I was saying this beforehand, and I'll say this again. I've tried to listen to like other podcasts regarding Star Wars Legends, which can get silly. And Emily and Kelly, both of y'all strike the exact same tone that I want to take, which is you take it very seriously, but at the same time, you're like, there's a character called Luke Skywalker. And that is like, that's objectively silly. And also you, before the show, have persuaded me to possibly read Tatooine Ghost, which I'm really pleased by. Yeah.
We stand behind Tatooine Ghost. Yeah, you should. We never read it before reading it for the show, and it's pretty fun.
Are there ghosts?
It's an open question.
Yeah, artist subjective. Who is the Tatooine ghost? I think is a question that the book might leave a little open ended. But probably it's Anakin Skywalker who like murdered a bunch of people on Tatooine. But
or it's his mom. It's his mom who you can never really like pin down as a character. She's sort of a ghost behind everything that happens. Yeah.
Hold on a second. You can't. You're telling me that Shmi Skywalker is not the most well-developed character in Star Wars?
I mean,
canon.
This is going to help slightly.
Yeah,
a little bit. I mean, they find her diary and they listen to it like a podcast as they're zooming around Tatooine, which is very funny. And like Chewbacca and Han Solo get very into it. They're like, "When's the next episode of Shmi Skywalker Hour?" Like, but it's the premise of it is. It's great. The premise of it is really great. It's that a piece of Alderaanian art turns up at an underworld auction, and Leia's trying to go track it down. And then there's just great moments like Han Solo sees art that inspires emotion in him for the first time. So he has this like crisis throughout the book where he's like, "Do I feel things for art? Is like that what art is?"
When you're constantly living on the edge, just trying to survive, do we have the leisure
exactly
to consider art?
Well, we answer discuss yes. like in depth what Han Solo's previous art experience would be, and it's probably like a girl in a bikini riding a Ferrari poster on the Falcon. So.
Yeah, it's like just a classic dorm room like Reservoir Dogs poster. I think that's like officially canon. Yeah.
He's like, this sabacc figurines are so well designed.
Oh my god! You know, he has like a really terrible sabacc tattoo somewhere. Yeah.
Is there a possibility? Because we're going through TOS versus the Clone Wars, and I just discovered that pinup art exists canonically within the Star Wars universe.
Oh,
is
amazing.
Is it possible that pinup art could be something that Han Solo
has?
I don't. Has. Thank you.
Sure.
That's the
values.
Absolutely.
Values.
I think 1000%. Yeah.
There's no question in my mind.
I had forgotten. So we reread Truce at Bakra for our first book, and there's a whole scene where he is seducing Leia on the Falcon on what I can only describe as like one of those 90s blow up couches. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, yeah, the like PVC like transparent like furniture of the 90s, which
love it.
Chewbacca inflated for him because he's the best wingman.
Yeah. So I think like frat boy aesthetic is definitely canonically Han Solo.
Holy crap.
See, this is what you can learn by reading these books. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I mean, I've been eager to dive into the EU. Maybe eager is not the right word. I'm making my way through the Star Trek Extended Universe books.
I also love Europe, so
that's not Aspen. That's not. I'm not.
What? No,
I'm not talking about that at all. I'm not talking about Europe at all. I'm talking about the extended universe of Star Wars.
Weird. Wait, what? What?
I'm just, I'm talking about the things that our guests are familiar with and experts with, and I want them to talk about it because I just like listening to them anyways.
Kenny, there's a lot of pro-union and labor sentiment in Europe.
Depends on what country.
I can do segues too.
Go on, please. Take us into a segue.
France! No.
I think you mean Ireland, especially in the case of our friend Colm.
I can't. DS9. Oh my God. Miles O'Brien.
Ireland by way of Pennsylvania.
I know, right? Yes. Oh my gosh.
Speaking of Miles O'Brien, I think that's a great segue to read the synopsis for our pieces, starting with Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Bar Association. Let me get my notebook out here. A story by Barbara J. Lee and Jennifer A. Lee, teleplay by Robert Hewitt Wolf and Ira Stephen Bear. First aired February 19th, 1996. Director LeVar Burton. Heard of him, Aspen?
Nice.
Yeah, butterfly in the sky. Also, of course, Geordi from Next Generation.
Yes. From Arnud Thiele from IMDb.
Yep.
It's the Bajoran time of cleansing, and business is very slow at Quark's bar. Rom's ear is aching up again. He even faints, but gets no sick leave from Quark. When Quark announces a pay cut for all the employees, Rom is fed up. On advice from Bashir, he decides to start a union strictly forbidden by Ferengi law. But Rom is determined and convinces all the other employees to join. At first, Quark laughs, then finds himself without the striking staff. Still, he won't give in. Just when Captain Sisko orders him to end the strike, Liquidator Brunt arrives. Meanwhile, Worf still has problems settling on the station. He dislikes that security is less than on the Enterprise. Debatable. He is annoyed by the continuous technological malfunctions. That's even more debatable. And even gets into a fight with O'Brien and Bashir over entering Quark's bar. Worf sees only one solution. Thank you, Arnud. We appreciate your contributions to IMDb for our purposes of making content.
There's a lot. If you don't have the DS9 context here, it might be a little bit like, what's going on with Worf? Who is that? But specifically, here's all you need to know is for you, Kelly.
Thank you.
That it's not even, it's about Worf. Like, this isn't the Union side. It's him trying to adapt, but really it's about him and Jadzia, like, flirting.
Yeah. So
Kelly picked up on that right away. I got a text.
It's the first scene, and I got
a
like,
text
"Oh, it's
5
Worf."
seconds in. Yeah, that was like, "Oh, do they want to bang?"
Yes. The answer is yes.
Into him.
That's all you need to know. Oh God. Yeah. There's a whole thing too, but I was like, I actually couldn't remember where this was in their timeline. And I was just like, are they already? And I was like, oh, no, it's just the beginning.
What episode is this? This is season 4, episode 15.
Yeah.
That's whenever Worf came to DS9. And then this is about the middle of the season. So obviously he's still getting settled.
He's still getting settled.
In so many ways.
There's a whole thing. She's got some past. There's like a worm, and she's like Curzon was friends with Klingons. So don't worry about it.
I was just profoundly confused why he was there. Like, the interesting part of that episode is the Union stuff. And then there was Worf.
And there was Worf.
Like, why is he here?
Yeah. The interesting part was the part where Miles O'Brien said, he was more than a hero. He was a Union.
Oh my God.
Clapping on the couch.
Love it.
It's so good.
Now you know. Now you know where the meme is from.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I will do the summary for our Star Wars piece, which, as we mentioned, I know it's so great. So it is it is part of the greater book of the Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina by Kathy Tyers, and this story is We Don't Do Weddings, the band tale. Release date was July 95. Pretty cool.
Actually. Yeah.
That's what Wikipedia told me. So, let's see. Figrin Dawn and the modal nodes, bopping Bithians and members in good standing of the Intergalactic Federation of Musicians, were under exclusive contract to Jabba's palace. They're hoofing it up when Jabba's arch rival sent E522, a recycled assassin droid, to make them an offer they couldn't refuse. Figrin Dawn didn't do weddings, but Lady Valerian had imported herself a whipped mate from her homeworld and was dead set on getting hitched in high style. And what with Figrin Dawn's gambling debts, 3,000 credits could set him up just fine. But before they could cut the cake, Lady Val's bounty hunter bridegroom took Jabba's bait, skipped town to find Han Solo, and the party exploded in a murderous mayhem. And from what I can tell, this is how they end up ultimately at the Chalem Spaceport Cantina, where we see them at the beginning of A New Hope.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
accurate.
Yep. Is this like, I just want to say that there's a touch of like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead kind of vibe to this, of like your main characters are like kind of being mentioned or popping up in it, and you're like, what's the band doing?
Yeah.
Just like,
that's the premise of this whole book.
Oh, good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like there's so many stories where someone is in
literally
the bar and they'll be like, that guy just cut that other guy's arm off with a lightsaber. Anyway, back to our chicanery.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
I listened to the audiobook of this, by the way.
Nice.
It was like they turned it into a couple of them, I guess, into like little audio dramas. So it has like music in the back, and it's like playing.
I love that.
Yeah. I was just like,
Is it jizz though?
Oh, it is 100% jizz the whole
hot
time.
Jizz. Yeah.
Hot jizz. You know what? apparently they're thinking about being like, oh no, let's change the name. And I'm like, you do that over my dead body. So we got to stay consistent. But yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'm like,
I agree. Tradition. No, yeah. It's I think that's kind of the charm of the EU books often is like, it's basically anyone who's ever had 1 second of screen time gets like a whole inner life. And we find out like Wedge Antilles, who I think conservatively across the whole original trilogy gets, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes on screen.
Blowing up even.
2 actors blowing up various Death Stars, etc. Like we get his whole military career, rich inner life from Wedge, constantly popping up as like a side character, but also as a main character in a bunch of books. So he's probably like the most extreme example. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of like delving into these little side people, and I like it a lot.
There's actually an interesting. Now I'm like curious about the like EU like books relationship because Wedge does show up in Clone Wars significantly too. So
I think
I'm
probably
like,
because he put. Well, I mean, everyone loves Wedge. Wedge
everyone
shows up
loves
and
Wedge.
Accomplishes a lot. Yeah. Has great eyebrows. No, it's. I mean, there's certain things. Also, I think in Rebels, right? Thrawn is a character who's created for the EU, who's like left over, and he's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That's the whole. What? Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Kenny doesn't.
Great.
Oh,
you're not a Thrawn guy.
I think Kenny was just Googling Wedge Antilles' eyebrows.
Oh yeah.
That's what happened.
Kelly, outstanding. Thank you for picking up on that because you said great eyebrows, and I'm looking right here.
Yeah.
Gotta say, you're not wrong. And I'm even looking at episode 9, Wedge Antilles, where it's kind of weird that he's still wearing his X-Wing outfit. I don't know what, but he's still got those great eyebrows. But yes, I can confirm that. Point
Kelly,
number 2, I am notoriously anti-Thrawn.
Well, sorry, real quick, Kelly.
Yeah.
Are you like a body language expert? Second time I've heard you like pick up on something that wasn't so obvious based on look alone.
Not professionally.
Well, that's fine. Tell me all about Princess Catherine.
Well,
yes. But anyway, yeah, Kenny doesn't. I don't know. I can't remember Kenny. Do you not like the Thrawn? Do you like him in the original books, or
I don't like the prospect where in the EU that I have read, please don't shoot me, Emily and Kelly. I don't like the prospect that they're like the greatest military strategist of all time was over there.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then he just keeps, at least I've only read Heir to the Empire and Dark Force Rising. I'll get to The Last Command at some point because I didn't really grow up with the Star Wars EU. I'm just like, for being the greatest. I'm excited. And I don't like the prospect of like he keeps getting defeated pretty well. No, in Dark Force Rising, he doesn't get defeated. He kind of wins, right? Because that's their Empire
like,
fairly consistently. But
think about to
Kenny.
answer your first question. So we have some theories about this.
Here we go.
About why Thrawn is over there.
Yeah.
And I think that it's less about Thrawn and it's more about Palpatine. Because if you are Emperor Palpatine, first of all, super racist.
Racist.
Thrawn is the highest ranking he's humanoid, but he's an alien species.
Yes.
That there ever has been. And Palpatine likes to keep middle management around him who have no ambitions to be anything other than middle management.
Yeah.
But Thrawn could take over the whole shebang and do it really well without the Force. And I think that Palpatine is like, oh, I can't have that next to me. I definitely need his input, but I need him way over there.
I appreciate
there's some stuff in the later books where we find out there's this other race that's coming from outside the galaxy. And Thrawn's supporters would say that that's what he's been doing. He's been hanging out on the Outer Rim, blocking a worse threat than the Empire. And that's why he took a job with the Empire.
It's like Captain Marvel. She's like, there's other stuff going on. I can't be here.
I won't spoil it, but I think that's a valid question. Yes, I think, and it is very like Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Like we have him and his little his buddy Captain Pelion, who's just like standing around to be like amazing.
Yeah,
but
we don't usually see things from Thrawn's perspective, right? We see things from like his lapdog's perspective, and so of course he's like,
He's like, why did I love him so much? Why did he disappear and smoke opioids? Come back out. a true problem with Thrawn.
Yeah. That's right. Constantly playing the violin high. Yeah.
So weird.
I think that's a valid critique of Thrawn. I think it's nice. I feel like in Timothy Zahn interviews and stuff, he talks about how he wanted to create. He's like, what is Palpatine's motivation for any of this? We have no idea. He just likes to meddle and cackle, right? And then Vader's kind of like a religious fanatic, right? And then, but like, what is the Empire? And this is like, he's like, what would happen if there's someone who like truly believed in fascism, and like, how would they? And you like wanted to follow them because of that. And that's what Thrawn is supposed to be. And I think that's an interesting take.
That is rad.
Yeah. I mean, I love all of those answers, even though I fundamentally disagree with them because they're extremely well thought out.
It's classic.
You called us.
Yeah, right.
I did call you. Y'all are smart.
Thrawn in Rebels just has a straight up piece of like Twi'lek art that's like very important to this royal family, and it's like a huge plot piece of like trying to get it back as well, and like not being us, and it's just it's a very strong like English museums just like stealing shit from other Western places, like stealing and being like, it's ours now, what you gonna do? So very much that vibe. So but I guess this isn't about Thrawn. Am I right? This is about unions. I didn't even know until reading this, by the way, that there were any unions in the Star Wars galaxy. The Intergalactic Federation of Musicians.
That's right. Actually, in Shadows of the Empire, like a union also comes up really briefly, which is super funny. There's like a crime boss, and he's having his like weekly taking bribes meetings, and the head of the sex workers union, Coruscant, comes in and is like, we have some real problems, like we're not getting paid correctly, and he's like, I will take care of it. Anything for my union brethren.
And then also
totally out of nowhere. Yeah.
Famously, Lando Calrissian is constantly paying people to make sure that his workers don't unionize.
I know, it's a bummer.
Lando, incredible at everything, especially capes. Terrible when it comes to labor.
Yeah.
Lando has dropped in esteem for me.
I mean, that makes sense. We meet him because he's got Cloud City going on Empire, and then Heir to the Empire. He's got his own new, or not. Yeah, it's Heir to the Empire because they got those little crawlers. And he's just running another business operation. So he's a business owner. And so he has incentive to be anti-union. It's opportunist, right? Even though I do like Lando more than Han Solo.
Okay,
it's like a funny part of like the video, though, is Lando's basically the only space capitalist. Everyone else has a government job on both sides. You know, like literally everyone else is going to get a pension. And Lando's the only one out there doing capitalism. I mean, maybe say Talon Card, but Talon Card is also kind of, as we talked about in the podcast, a manic pixie dream boss. Like he's like, I'm doing this all for my employees.
Yep.
I'm making them a beautiful buffet when they're not smuggling. Sorry, that's a deep cut for those who are not into these books. But
no, but I like the idea of a manic pixie dream boss a lot.
So say we all.
Yeah.
So say we all.
I would love to have one in real life, but I don't think they exist. Yeah.
Y'all can talk a little bit more because the union stuff within We Don't Do Weddings it feels quite ancillary as opposed to first off, in your initial episode about the Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, I loved your analysis that this was basically like some like it hot, but in Star Wars. There's a whole bunch of shenanigans. There is no cross-dressing in this one, but you're absolutely right on point because it's a whole bunch of shenanigans. But it's a delightful romp. He talks about our main character, which unfortunately I forget what his
name is Doik.
Doik.
Thank you.
Doik. Doik.
Put some respect on his name.
Because Figrin's the one that leads it, and it's Doik like narrating and talking about him, because it was like Figrin's the one that gambled away their money. I was like, what up, Jack?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Figrin Dawn
Tatooine in the first place. Yeah.
Figrin Dawn and the Modal Nodes were a big deal. They played lots of Coliseums. I guess they frequently played Madison Square Garden. But Figrin Dawn basically gambled all of it, and they're stuck on Tatooine. They're stuck in this contract for playing Jabba the Hutt and the whole
Imagine if
book.
Bruno Mars had gotten like addicted to gambling in like Reno. I feel like that's the situation we're facing right now, you know?
Horrifying.
Yeah.
And then there was a weird casino bar fight in Reno, and then the cops came. Just ran. Wild.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Kitty, that I was listening to, I was like, I wonder when the union's gonna like keep it, because they're in the contract. They're trying to break the contract because they're like, man, I could like get fed to a Rancor at any point. I'm like, does the union protect them from like that type of, I would say, unfair treatment by crime bosses? Like, I guess I was like, what is the pull of the union on these outer rim planets, if any?
That's a good question.
And also, I mean, within this, it feels like Doik is a little bit like, ugh, we had to join the union. That's how bad things are. But correct me if I'm correct me if I'm wrong. And also the entire thing is from Doik's point of view, and there's lots of shenanigans. They have to duck behind a van. Am I remembering that correctly? And then also jizz music exists, but also swing music exists within Star Wars, which was fascinating to me. I was just like, what is the delineation from there? Sorry, please.
I don't know. There are a lot of shenanigans. I think the only thing we get about the Intergalactic Federation of Musicians is that they're in good standing. That's it. That's like all we know. And they use it as like I'm a card-carrying member. Like, you can't do this to me, but nobody comes to rescue them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, the classic thing where you move to another state for lower taxes, and then you realize like there's a real trade-off there. Maybe it's a right to work state on Tatooine.
I don't know. As someone that lives in Texas, I don't know what you are talking about. Everything is very chill. Everyone likes the politics. It's very safe here.
Right.
All of my friends are staying. It's great.
They're not moving to Los Angeles, California.
It's great.
Yeah. It reminds me very much a lot of the teachers unions in Texas, which they try their best, but are relatively like kind of toothless in what they are actually able to affect, especially with like the comparison of seeing like teachers unions in California that were able to like effectively negotiate for higher pay. Whereas here in Texas, they are just, they cannot get to that point. So ostensibly there's a union, but what is it actually doing in this place? It's Texas. So, that sounds like the vibe.
I mean, I remember listening to Delusions of Grandeur, not just keep bringing up the fact that I listened to y'all's podcast, but you were also talking about like what I believe was in the Heir to the Empire chunk of just being like, what are their jobs? Like, how does Luke's, because there's economics within Star Wars. This exists. People get paid credit, but then there's this whole line of books where they're doing space adventures, but like, how are they getting
paying the
paid?
bills?
Which then begs the questions: what are the economics of Star Wars? What are labor movements within Star Wars? How do our characters feel like it? Lando is, as you've said, it's anti-union. What the heck does that mean? As opposed to Star Trek's utopian economics, where it's extremely hand-wavy of being like, don't think about it, it just works. Don't think about it. It just works. Star Trek's economics, they don't exist, but they do. Don't worry about it.
I mean, Star Wars is a little hand-wavy in the sense that like our main characters, your Lukes, your Leias, your Han Solos, a lot of them just go to Princess Leia for a handout. Like, apparently she's incredibly wealthy. She has all this Alderaanian princess money, even though the planet is no longer there. Spoiler, sorry.
The offshore accounts.
Offshore Alderaanian accounts. And we were just reading in Shadows of the Empire, they were like trapped in a hallway, and Luke and Lando like pulled out all of these thermal detonators, the little ball thing that she takes into Jabba's palace and like threatens to blow him up with in Return of the Jedi. This is where they get them.
Which you find out are like low-grade nuclear weapons in that section.
I'm sorry, what?
So they couldn't have been cheap, first of all. Second of all, she picks one up and she's like, what is this? And they tell her, it's a thermodetonator. And she's like, great. And she puts it in her purse. And they're like, well, we were going to use it. And she's like, well, I want to save it for later. And they're like, I mean, we bought it with your money anyway. So they had been like going around with like Leia's line of credit, just charging things and being like, she'll get it.
Yeah.
The Republic will get it. The Alliance will get it. The Rebels will get it.
I'm feeling weirdly jealous, right?
I know. It's crazy. And then another funny part of the EU is Han Solo, for the vast majority of it, has no job. And he's like totally cool about it. Like he's just like, I will be like your stay-at-home spouse and the father of your children. No problem. Yep. Hate working for a wage.
Yeah. Sure.
Also, so, like, same.
They exist. It's surprisingly like considering when they were written, it's kind of shockingly progressive. But it's true. There is some union stuff. I feel like in Andor, obviously, it comes out a little more.
So does the money generally in Andor, right?
Yes.
Like that's Mon Mothma's whole deal. How are we going to move this money around?
Yeah. Am I going to sell my daughter into marriage?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Andor, of course, has been the most loudly like workers' rights and like, which is probably why it is so appealing to me. In addition to being so well written and great. How interesting.
Yeah. But I think that is kind of the thing about Star Wars that is sort of funny is most people do have government jobs, and like I don't know, like that does kind of crack me up. Considering again, especially when the EU was written in the 90s, I wouldn't have expected all the protagonists to be like, I am a career civil servant, but they are. Like literally even the villains are, like Thrawn presumably is getting a pension as an Imperial Admiral, like it does really crack me up.
That's fine. But then also it's just weird whenever your space fantasy then just begs economic questions as well, and then starts putting labels on things, which is, make no mistake, I absolutely adore Andor, and I think it's an incredibly relevant piece of fiction, just period. And then also it happens to have the Star Wars label on top of it. I'm also interested just within the political context of how, like this book and then the books that are mentioning what the heck the workers movement, not necessarily the workers movement, but I guess the working structure is within like the mid 1990s, whenever I feel like the Star Wars EU was so potent. It was basically the US was pretty darn conservative at the time, even though Bill Clinton was president.
Well, so also wait, I think there's a connection here too of the when did the DS9 episode come out again?
96.
So this, that's what you said, pretty darn close. 95 and 96, like these two things coming out around the same time. Y'all probably might be able to answer this question better, but I've got like little brain thoughts on.
No, do it. What are your brain thoughts?
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your brain thoughts, Aspen?
My brain thoughts. Well, I think we all are pretty aware of how we used to have a pretty strong union type of structure within the United States that was systematically dismantled in various ways. And then very much Reagan administration was a huge piece of that. And so when you do have unions, what is left is something that does not have much power. And so there isn't real economic incentive. Part of that too is the shift of, rather than having pensions, you're now shifting to a system of 401ks and investments. So now any profit making from your company is no longer going to employees, it goes to shareholders. Yeah. So it is now stock holding, so it's now even less about you're actually making profit, and it's more about the perception of your shareholders of your success. Right. So a lot of these different systems played into actually now de-incentivize unions as the kind of the push of what will get you those rights. So we've gotten away from pensions, we've gotten into stock holding, and with Reagan administration. And then, so you have the greed is good of the 80s, and then you have whatever is kind of left into the 90s. And yeah, sure, Bill Clinton was president, but it's still neoliberalism, right? So
I think you love to beat up on anything, remotely progressive, frankly. Yeah.
And that's
totally right. Yeah. Your brain thoughts are my brain thoughts. And the other, the other intuition I had was like, especially with the DS9 episode, while we were watching it, Emily and I watched it together, like but separately on different coasts, but at the same time, so that I could be like, who the fuck is that? Why is Worf here? Are they banging? That kind of stuff.
Oh, it sounds like your husband Drew was like he was a far better guy than I could have been. But
he did also like one breath monologue the entire plot to me, so that was nice.
That's true.
But it really also had a vibe of like, oh, was there like a writer's strike right before this? Because usually, and there wasn't. I looked it up. It was like 1988 and then like 2000. So we're in the middle of like, we haven't talked about this for a while, but I had thought like possibly that's when you get that kind of stuff on TV, when writers are like organizing and then they're like, we need other people to know about this, so we embed it in our materials. But it didn't pan out.
I also think with this story, we actually talked to the author, and she was like a working musician for a long time. I think it really shows in the piece.
Really?
Yep.
And there's like a paragraph that I really love where he's talking about how much they hate playing weddings. Please understand, a wedding gig wastes 2 days, 3 days with some species, plus the time it takes to learn new music. You're treated like a recording, told to repeat impossible phrases and lengthen the usual processional. In order to play a final chord, as the nerve-wrack principals arrive center stage, if they arrive. Someone always brings a screaming neonate. Then the reception, where they inebriate themselves until no one hears a note. All this for half pay and full satisfaction. You've helped perpetuate a species.
It's fire.
Yeah. I just feel like she's worked a lot of gigs, and they suck a lot of the time.
Oh my God.
It's way better to be a union musician than a non-union musician. So
I mean, man, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because now that I've got the story pulled up right here, and you're absolutely right. There's so many wonderful specificities that feels. Yeah, thank you for connecting those dots, because it kind of feels more lived in, as opposed to some like whenever some folks just write science fiction in general. And I mean, I'm just thinking about Star Trek stuff in general. Yes.
Always. Kenny is always thinking about Star Trek stuff in general.
Very true. Very true.
I do think kind of the idea of like this time frame, my sense of DS9 as a program, and like Star Trek in general, is that it is oriented toward progressivism. Like, DS9 specifically is dealing in very interesting topics, really getting down to the crux of things, which is why it is my favorite of what I've seen. So good. Like, actually deals in race, actually deals in like really like digging into stuff.
I mean, if I can hop in here. You can say no. You can say no, Aspen.
Gross, I guess.
Just to keep beating the exact same drum that I beat almost every week. The word is aesthetics. And we're talking so much about Star Wars appropriating aesthetics to give the illusion of actually being about something, which, make no mistake, it is about something. And also the tricky thing about not being specific with your mission statement is that then you can have nefarious actors be able to appropriate iconography for bad purposes. But it's general, as opposed to, and I mean, even Star Trek can be guilty of this. You can see that with like right wingers just being like, keep politics out of my Star Trek. but then you also look at a whole bunch of things, and some of the political statements that they make can be kind of general. This episode is decidedly no, pro-union. Our characters are pro-union, except for Worf, who crosses the picket line. Yeah. And I was thinking about this
on the promenade.
While I was in the car, because Worf is like an extremely conservative character who is like, we got to talk about Klingon honor, Klingon values, traditional Klingon values. And the dude crosses a picket line to go get something at Quark's, and then ends up getting a fight with Julian and Miles, which rules.
It does.
I love it.
Miles O'Brien.
And also just
our two most rickety boys. Yeah.
Rickety boys. Oh,
Truly.
my God. Yeah. O'Brien is not only a hero, but a Union man.
So true.
Love that dude. I mean, he is an interesting character just at his core, right? Because everyone else is like an officer and he is a chief engineer, right? So he's, he actually, presumably, he's in Next Gen, right? So I've never actually really seen, he and Worf both in Next Gen.
Both
so
Next
he ends
Gen.
up there. So he's not like
very super, I mean, I don't feel like in Next Gen he's really driving a ton of plot. I mean, I guess there's him and his wife, right? That's pretty much it. No?
Oh, yeah. No.
Okay, so O'Brien. Here's what's cool about O'Brien.
Everything?
He won everything. He gets one A plot in Next Generation, the episode The Wounded, which is a sick episode. It's about O'Brien's former commanding officer going rogue and attacking Cardassian ships.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I do remember that. Yeah.
It's exquisite. You meet you meet Mark Alimo as the first Cardassian, and he sets the template for what Cardassians are, but he's not Gul Dukat. And then O'Brien gets a couple B stories. Here's what's really important for O'Brien's story, though, and this is also going into why he's a Union man. O'Brien is an enlisted officer in Starfleet.
Yes.
As opposed to as opposed to everyone else that you see who went to the academy, O'Brien enlisted. So he is not, which then implies a whole bunch of stratification. It cast stuff that was not existing beforehand, but now it exists. And O'Brien is very much salt of the earth. He's just a guy who wanted a job I'm not even sure I understand outside of just the basic. Our officers went to the academy. O'Brien worked his way up. And now he is the chief engineer of Deep Space Nine. And then in this episode, he talks about how to hang out in the transporter room. He was like, that's boring. I love being here. You kidding me?
That's cool. Yeah. And I think that's something I like about DS9. And also the extended universe is I will say Star Wars on screen is pretty problematic towards non-humans. We basically never hear them speak in their own words. We just hear people react to them. Chewbacca is the most constant example, but Jabba also, right? They're never speaking English. They're always speaking some other language. The same with pretty much every droid except for C-3PO. And these books, you get more into the motivations of stuff. The Bothans are a major species, kind of maybe similar to the Cardassians in a way. They're very schemy, but the only reference we get to them in the movies is just many Bothans died to bring us this information. Right. And then in the EU, they extrapolate out this whole culture. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean if this species has a massive spy operation? What kind of people would they be? And it turns out that they're all extremely backstabby corporate raiders, and that's why they have so many spies. But I don't really know where I was going with this, except to say I do like the little touches of that in this episode, where Miles has to explain what a union is to Rom, and then we also get the whole. There's more. I think this is one of the times when they really get into Ferengi culture. There's other times too, but I like that they're getting to the rules of acquisition and why it's anathema to be in a union, right? And he says something we don't want to stop being exploited. We want to become an exploiter or whatever.
Which feels very 2024.
Well, Ferengi don't want to find a way to stop the exploitation. We want to become the exploiters. Which, it's very 20. Yeah, it's exactly. It's the temporarily embarrassed millionaires piece, totally. Right? It's because the only way this works is in actual community and collaboration and that actual union strong. And if we are thinking, well, I need to be advancing beyond you for what, then it falls apart. And it's there's also really quick a fabulous sort of there's different levels of this. There's the high capitalists of the Ferengi, and then there's these different levels of Miles O'Brien being this kind of more workers class, fought my way up kind of understanding. And then there's the Bashir, right, who was mentioned a union, but was like, oh, I didn't actually mean it, because he's in a position of privilege, right? Of just being like, why? Like, he's in like where I kind of live a lot of the time, where I'm just like, I don't know, I guess I'm be cool now. I don't know. So like, he was just like, wait, what? What does this actually mean in terms of the sacrifice of the thing and the fighting for the thing? And he didn't really think about it until now he's in it too. So there's like different levels there.
Right on.
Yes,
to go possibly on a little bit of a tangent, because Kelly, you said that you'd never watched DS9 before.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Be honest now.
Okay.
What was your experience watching this episode without the rest of the context? I mean, you said that your understanding was that DS9 might be the goofiest of them.
Yeah. So, I mean,
this was
on
episode.
in 1996. Yeah. I was 12. I definitely was like clicking past it. This is a remote control motion for anybody that can't see or doesn't know what I'm doing.
Gen Zers are out here like, what you doing? You're clicking on a phone.
So it's probably on like TBS or something, and would see the like toaster fly by for the opening credits. And then also just like looking at the Ferengi and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, I was probably like, oh, this is the goofy one. So we had like the original series, which is obviously incredibly serious and not funny at all. And then the scary one, which is Next Generation. And then this one, which is like a sitcom, essentially, because they're all in the same place, right? They don't go anywhere. They're like, this is my assumption, having not seen it.
No,
so
this is
a goofy one.
This is exactly what I want, actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
that was my understanding. This still is the only one I've seen because I watched it 2 days ago. But y'all have said that it's much more than that. So I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it. I mean, I know who Worf is. I knew that Miles O'Brien was in Next Generation. So those characters I was familiar with. And then I was like, oh, the doctor's from Battlestar Galactica. And then it was very clear that like the lady with the spots on her face was into Worf. But that was like a side plot. And really it was the Union thing. And it was sort of just like, at any moment, I expected them to break into song and have it be just Newsies in space.
But this is so good, Kelly.
But it has everything, right? Like teach the young ones what a union is, and then like it's a compromise we can all live with. Like I will pretend to not give you the thing, and you'll pretend to break up the union, and then everything will be fine. Like we all get a little bit of what we want.
Kelly, this is so what my notes literally say. This app has everything. What is going on? Yes, that's really fun though, to like go into it with like that kind of like, I guess this is what I'm watching, and see what it feels like.
Yep.
Did you like it? Did you two of you like it?
Did you like it?
Did you like it?
Oh,
did you
really
like it? She liked it.
As it was goofy. I wasn't wrong. It's incredibly goofy.
No, you're not wrong.
Miles O'Brien is like really deeply invested in like what happened on the Allegheny River in Pennsylvania in like 1920, and I was like, okay, yeah.
I mean, DS9 does
Vulcans are on the side of labor, which made me really happy.
I did like that.
I also will say that I would love to read is Quark's bar called something?
Quarks. Just called Quarks.
Wasn't it?
I would like to
read. There's a Quark's Bar and Holding or something, right? It had a funny
Bar
name.
and Holding.
Oh, yeah,
that was his like LLC name.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's a lot of glup shittos in there. You could do a Tales from Quark's Bar
easy
short story collection.
Oh,
there's the one guy that just sits there and doesn't say anything. Apparently, his name is Morn. I was really into him. Like
they do a glup shitto
backstory.
Episode about him. Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
Which is
an
extraordinary episode.
Who mourns for Morn?
Who mourns for Morn?
And then they're also talking
does he
about
die?
Maybe
sort of
or not.
And what's great is
Norm of the Space Cheers.
It's an anagram of Norm.
Yeah. It's exactly what he. Yeah. He doesn't talk really, but
the business itself is called Quark's Bar, Grill, Gaming House, and Hollow Suite Arcade, also known as Quark's Bar and Holding Company, according to Memory Alpha, which is outstanding.
Nice.
Incredible.
Yeah. Well, I really, just because, one good turn serves another, I really enjoyed this short story.
Yeah, it's a good one. So Kathy, sorry, I always, because we said her name wrong for like 7 years when we were planning this podcast. Kathy
Kathy
Tyers?
Beers?
Tyers. Kathy Tyers.
Tyers.
That's her pen name, so I don't feel as bad.
Yes.
But she also wrote Truce at Baccarat, which is the EU book that starts immediately after Return of the Jedi. It's really good. It's one of my favorites. I really recommend it. It's the first book that we read for the series. But I don't know where I was going with this, except it's also really musical. Like they encounter this alien species that communicates through song, and so like there's a human that they've kidnapped. Not great, but he's trying to like find a way to like write their language in a way that humans can understand, and basically using musical notes. I think she really has a good like. She clearly has a soft spot for sort of like exploring non-human cultures in her writing in the EU, and I always enjoy her stuff. Yeah.
I think it's also incredible that she's writing this from the first person of Doik.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I think that's pretty rare. Even in this book, there's like 3 stories that are from the first person. So you don't get the like he felt. It's like, and then they did this to me, and I think that's great.
Maybe it was like also hearing it dramatized. The guy who was reading it did a great job, but it also like the writing of it to me was so very. This is a specific character who is feeling the way he feels, and like the language was really interesting. I liked it. So
it's hit or miss with the EU, but Kathy does a great job.
Oh, Kathy, great job. Yeah, it's pretty fabulous.
And she told us all this insider information about how they basically contacted a bunch of sci-fi writers in the early 90s and rounded them all up and brought them to like Skywalker Ranch to like pitch them on this big project of creating the EU. This was like before anyone knew there was going to be sequels or anything. And the idea was, I think, to sort of revive interest in Star Wars the prequels, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, to sort of revive interest in Star Wars before that, because if George Lucas is anything, it's like a marketing genius. So
here's what I don't understand. Why didn't they do another holiday special?
I don't get it.
God,
I don't know what the ROI was on that, to be honest.
Huge.
The cocaine budget really obliterated whatever profit they made. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This time around, they were like, you know what? Books.
Books are cheap. Books are cheap to produce.
There is also like a ton of crossover between the EU writers and Star Trek novel writers.
Oh yeah.
So like, we just read we just did an episode about Tales from Jabba's Palace, which is a far inferior book to this one.
Good to know.
There's a husband and wife Canadian writing team that wrote a story in there that is really good, and they wrote like dozens
Judith
of
and
books
Garfield
with
Reese Stevens. Yes.
Yeah.
We got to get more Star people that worked on both Star Trek and Star Wars. Aspen, put that on the to-do list.
No, only Star Wars, please. Sorry, no, Star Wars. Only Star Wars.
I mean, I'm trying to broker like a
sounds like someone's a winner. I'm a winner, baby.
I mean, let's not jump to the end of it. We still have a lot of other stuff to do, Aspen.
Oh, do we? Do we? Like what? I don't.
Long time ago, start date this week. I courted a beau, I dated a geek, but none of them could warp my drive into hyperspace. The best of both worlds kept me in second place. Captain's log on a holocron. I wanted a snog, I penned a song. 17 more minutes of thighs in super high def. Aboard the USS Enterprise, DTF. Don't you take my Ewok glider and clip it. Don't you take my red shirt buddy and nip it. If you spill the tea, I'm gonna sip it. I starship it.
Aspen.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you before we introduce the segment, I starship it.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I have gotten your partner, Joel.
That's my partner, Joel.
He
wrote it. He did.
The first time that I have gotten his wordplay of the USS Enterprise DTF.
DTF.
That's really funny. If you could just give him a back pat from me today, that would be exceptional.
I will.
Because that's some good wordplay, I gotta say. Aspen, what are we doing right now?
Okay, they're in our favorite game. Our favorite game, yours and mine, where we will name our favorite starships in the sky or vehicles of any type from either. We had to make a vehicle of any type because we like started doing this when we were doing like Ewoks. We were just like the horse. Like it was hard. That or and our favorite romantic ships.
Oh.
So again, I would say because there's 4 of us and because we sprung this upon you, so you didn't like you might not have like had time to plan.
Ready.
Oh, you're ready. Okay, great. I think we could like we try not to like we'll steal it from each other. Like I'll be like, I'm so ready with the ship. And then Kenny will say it first. And I'm like, you jerk. And also we try not to repeat, but we will not hold those rules for you. We will not hold those. You can do whatever you want. You're our guest.
But make no mistake, I will hold it to Aspen. There is decorum that we must maintain.
And also an enemy relationship, apparently, when it comes to this.
We have to maintain the kayfabe, right? Yes.
So, yes. We start with the ships that go through the sky.
I'll say for Mos Eisley Cantina, my favorite ship is the junk ship that they make into the casino, obviously.
Yeah.
Yay!
Maybe the only one.
Yeah. I guess I have a land speeder that has an unbolted droid on it. That's a nice touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think the casino's rad. I don't know. It sounds neat. I would love to have a weird I just was like watching Instagram reels like an elder millennial, and there's this whole one about this paddle boat outside of Sacramento that they just like dragged out of the water because it was sinking, and it's just like sitting by the edge of the river. And I'm like, yeah, I would love that. I would love to have a casino on a land paddle boat in Sacramento. That sounds great. Yeah.
I would say if I don't want to like, we will someday get to DS9, but
Aspen,
you know what?
Don't you break decorum. Don't break decorum. Don't do it. If you break
the
decorum,
thing is that this isn't, it's not me breaking decorum. It would be like if I say it now, I can't say it in the future.
Aspen, do not break decorum.
How would I be breaking decorum?
Bad baby. Oh, what's going on?
How?
I don't know.
I'm just going to do it. The Defiant.
Yeah.
Well, it's in this episode. No?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. I'm not breaking decorum. He's just being mean to me.
So wait, is that the one where Worf is like, I can't take it anymore. I'm going on the ship that's attached to the thing. Okay.
Yes.
I live in this El Camino and play my Klingon opera at top volume.
And Spotty Lady is like, why do you want to leave me? I made you a mixtape. Googling. Oh yeah.
It's pretty,
yeah.
It is. It's like by the time they get to this point in DS9, there's like this external threat. There's a whole thing with DS9 that they're like what actually starts it. There's a whole thing. There's like a wormhole to this other quadrant of the galaxy, and there's like another external threat, and so they end up like getting this like Defiant class together that they had started in the past to fight the Borg. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, and it's a great ship. It rules. It is like, but the thing is that because they're on this static space station, it's like the only ship. They're like all of the. I mean, there are other ships, obviously, but it's like the one that they're like, time to take our ship out. It's time to take the Defiant.
It's like the 5 o'clock shuttle to Bajor, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. There's that. Yeah.
Bizarre. Okay.
But I still got to pick a ship, and I'm going to pick Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
Does
that?
It's
Like
it very much counts because
it's a vehicle.
The whole thing. Not only that, because in the pilot episode, Aspen, Chief O'Brien created a static bubble that lightened the mass so it could use the station's thrusters to move it to the wormhole, so Bajor / Starfleet could kind of colonize the area before the Cardassians moved in and claimed it, thereby kind of colonizing safe space travel into the Gamma Quadrant.
That's true. Kenny's right.
Can I amend my answer, actually?
Yes. You do whatever you want.
I had a mind pop while you were talking.
Here we go.
Okay, here it goes.
Here we go.
Miles O'Brien from Ireland.
Uh-huh.
In Ireland, if you're super hot, you get called a massive ride. We ride vehicles. Miles O'Brien is my favorite vehicle.
This is why we invented this game. Yes.
My
Would still ride.
It's a really good answer.
that might genuinely be one of the best answers that we've ever had, and I'm not just trying to pander because I like you. That's outstanding. Speaking of massive rides, we're going to the second part of our game.
Who do you want to see kiss?
Out of these two things that we've just witnessed, only, or the broader universes?
Just these two things.
Okay.
Just these two things.
I know. It's so hard.
I mean, I think it's got to be Miles and Bashir, honestly.
Of course.
But that's a classic answer. Yeah.
It's a good one too.
Like, they're having so many adventures in that holosuite, and you're going to tell me they're not going to, do some Viking raiding and then just like have a little kiss afterwards?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Kelly, I gotta say, there's an episode towards the end of DS9 where Miles has to genuinely confront the fact that he likes spending more time with Bashir than he does his own wife. And it is
excellent.
They are just like, I think we really love each other. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It's outstanding.
This is
on
Kelly. You need to watch this show.
No, I'm
Kelly,
ready.
you gotta watch.
Emily's on it. You need to watch.
During my calendar, Delusions of Grandeur may change significantly.
I really think this is the thing to tide you over till Andor season 2. Like, I think it's got the chops that you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's got it all. It's a little goofy.
It's also like I can watch it all at once, as opposed to like The Acolyte, which I have to wait a week in between, which I'm having a really hard time with. So,
oh my god,
2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying The Acolyte very much as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, you got a ship?
I'm shipping.
You got a ship?
Kelly got a ship?
Cisco and baseball is also another one I think we can all agree.
us and Miles O'Brien.
Yeah.
As we climb, as we ride.
Miles O'Brien and his cyst that Bashir's going to draw a little face on.
That was so funny. I genuinely was like, there was such funny banter. I was like, just get rid of this.
I know, I was like, God, like, be a doctor, man.
It's the future.
I know.
Just like pop it right out of there. Be Dr. Pimple Popper of the future, Bashir. Yeah. This is good. You know what I'm going to go for? Like, because I appreciate a fiery, passionate relationship that, like, it's like, like, at least we tried, like, and we like went for it. And even though it failed, like, it's better than not like feeling love at all. So I'm going for Lady Valerian and Dewap.
Oh
my gosh.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It was a real short and tempestuous romance.
Right. But like,
I'd also like to see them kiss because
how do they do it?
Profoundly curious about how that happens in the story. It's like, where do all the tusks go? And I would also like to know this.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
That dude is just like doing little gossips with himself the whole time. Like, he's just like, look at that guy over there. What's going on? Who's this Han Solo? It seems like
I would ship him and his fizz, but they already have a tight connection.
You can. Oh, you can choose that. You can choose that if you want.
I'm so glad that he like carried that thing out of there with nary a scratch, despite the fact that it had no case.
Yeah, that's true love right there.
It's real drama. Yeah.
I
was worried about this.
If you want that to be a ship, you should go for it.
A ship should be something that doesn't exist. That
you want you can even do people who are together. We try. You're right, but we try to relax them.
Okay, what about? I mean, we have a lot of in both of these massive foreheads. So like Doik and Rom could get together and bond over.
We never thought about a cross ship.
Oh no! Look, they're made for each other. They're so shiny. They can trade like.
They both work in the bar. Yeah.
Oh,
they're both incredibly competent, but underestimated.
Yes.
Because Rom mobilizes the Union, and Doik clearly has the head for all of this stuff, but Figrin Dawn is the one that is in charge, and so has to play, pun intended, second fiddle, or I guess second fizz.
Second fizz.
Yeah.
They can bond over that too. Yeah. Okay, that's my ship.
I also feel like Jizz could easily exist in Star Trek. Like it's
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Jazz
the holodeck.
does.
Yeah. Jazz very much does. Oh,
straight
goodness.
Up Jazz does.
So much jazz.
But there's like, I'm trying to think of musical. Anyway, yes. Kenny, your choice.
I'm so shocked that I am the one that is doing this one. Worf and Jadzia Attacks.
Listen.
Is that the spotty lady?
Yeah.
That's the spotty lady.
Okay, cool.
And her immortal parasite. Yeah. To be fair, it's really a polycule. Yeah.
It is.
It is a polycule.
There's this great meme about DS9 that's like, it's this like show about space Jesus, a twink and his lizard boyfriend, because Bashir also has this thing with a Cardassian.
Oh yeah. Bashir has something with everybody. Everyone.
It's true. And it's like
Bashir.
A trans worm, a goop with trauma, like it's in a Union Man. It's
excellent.
Like pretty great.
Everything.
Yeah, it's got everything. So no, but Jadzia and Worf they are like a little bit of an OTP.
But
successful.
I think the time for joviality is over as we go back to the central conceit of our podcast, which is art is a binary. It is either good or bad. There is nothing in between. And so we put a numerical ranking on both of these things. Again, the things that we are ranking from 1 to 10 is Star Trek Deep Space Nine Bar Association from season 4 versus We Don't Do Weddings by Kathy Tyers from Star Wars Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Kenny, do you want to go first? Just to like...
I will go first. Absolutely. Aspen?
Yeah.
What a great call. What a great call.
Yeah. To relieve the pressure.
And I'm going to do We Don't Do Weddings first, and I am going to give that a robust 7. Hijinks abound in it. It's not too terribly deep. It's fun. It's light. There's not too much prequelitis, which is really good because I mean that's rampant in Star Wars.
It's prequel. It's pure uncut. Yeah.
It is. It's pure. It's a 7. I give it a 7.
A 7.
Aspen?
Okay. I would say that I'm going to give it probably, it's funny because since I did listen to it, I got a little bit more of like, the music was playing in the background and there was like sound effects and stuff. It got like the radio drama effect to it. So it might be like even pulled it up a little bit more for me because I felt like I was having a great time. So maybe I'm going to pull it to like a 7.4.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You love to hear
granular.
Yeah. At a certain point, we were like, we have to be granular. Nothing could like fit on our regular scale anymore. For all the same reasons you said. I thought it was really fun. And then I had that extra special bit of just like, oh, I feel like I'm in on the action. So, what about y'all?
Yeah, I think we usually give our ratings out of 12 parsecs, but so I'm trying to think of what I give. I mean, I feel like this is like a solid. It's like a B+ for me. I enjoy it very much. I think that's probably about a 7.5 maybe. Yeah, very solid. I always enjoy Kathy's writing, and I wish that there's a whole like a hot spin-off novel about this band getting into hijinks all over the galaxy, frankly.
I would adore it to see some cross-dressing Biff. That would be great.
Get out of the little Steve Jobs uniform and, just some formal wear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I would give it somewhere between a 7 and a 7.5. Yeah, 7.35.
7.35.
Yeah. Because the writing is great. We've read a lot of Star Wars novels and short stories, and
no, what
quality varies wildly.
Yeah, I love Kathy. I think her writing is incredible. I do love that it's first person. It seems so rare But to really get the like interior life of this one random character is so good. Like there's this one part where it's pretty early on and Doik is looking around at all the different Bith and he says, our band leader, Figrin Don, was wearily swabbing his clue horn. There's a joke in there, but you'd have to speak Bithian to get it, which I just think is so good. Like you wouldn't get that if it wasn't first person.
It's so good.
You know, there's lines like another long night at Jabba's palace, and it has sort of a 20s or 30s vibe to it. So good with the hijinks. And
it's very screwball.
Into like shitto stuff without it being annoying. You know, it's just cute. So
perfect. Love it. We're on the same page. That's always fun. Sometimes we'll talk about an episode. We'll talk about an episode for an hour and a half. And I'll be like, I give this an 8. And Ken will be like, I actually give it a 3. I fucking hated it. And I was like, yay! I have no idea.
Is it the more you talk about it, the worse it gets? Or is it?
He just hides the feelings from me.
I mean, that's neither here nor there. That's something that I got to work with on my with my therapist.
I think the thing that I was gonna say that's like is charming about the EUs is essentially like professional fan fiction, and so like the best fan fiction, I feel like often it's like taps into stuff that's like really great and deep. That maybe even like the original authors didn't get, and the worst of it is really fucking bad. But it's like you have to have both to have a complete society, I guess. So.
Speaking of having a complete society, we do have to rate the other half of this podcast from Star Trek Deep Space Nine Bar Association. I will start us off. I'm going to give it an 8.5. The Ferengi episodes are usually much more fun and light than this. So this episode, make no mistake, was very fun, but it had a surprising amount of substance that was unexpected. It might also just be in the juxtaposition between this and Star Trek, the original series, which I adore Star Trek, the original series. And also I fault no normal person of being like, I cannot watch this. It is hard to get into those aesthetics as opposed to Deep Space Nine, where I feel like you don't have to necessarily teach someone how to watch it. You can watch it
except
and
for Kelly.
Something except for Kelly.
She picked it right up. Like a duck to water, truly.
Yeah. I really, really, really like this episode. I think it's got a lot of stuff to say. I think that it is optimistic without necessarily being naive about how unions work. Sure, they cut some corners, but at the same time, there are actual stakes. Lives are on the line because that's what happens whenever you are fighting for something that is as meaningful as workers' rights. And I adore that. I love that the Ferengi Commerce Authority gets brought in as muscle because
horrifying.
The government want it. It would be one thing for Quark just to be like, no unions, but it's another thing to be like, no, the government is a tool of business and they want to make a statement. I love this episode, and also I love Worf 8.5.
You just like almost made me cry.
Good.
It's true. It is true. Yeah. I have to say, this one, there's a lot of factors in this. I love DS9. It's so funny. I am a Star Wars person. I love DS9 so much. It like consumes me.
It's a great
anybody. Don't tell anyone. I also love unions. So everything that you just said, I know. I'm gonna like give it even higher. I'm gonna give like an 8. Wait, what did you give it? 8.5? Is that what you said? Or did you say 7.5?
Aspen is giving it a higher ranking.
No, I thought you said 7.5. No, I'm gonna give it higher than that. I'm gonna like beat you and say an 8 point. We'll do an 8.7. 8.7.
8.7. Playing Price is Right rules.
Love this. So y'all don't have to like it as much. Yeah. I'm just obsessed with everyone.
Also, Rom gets like some surprising depth. It rounds out his character and sets him up for even more stuff because he is so much a joke character.
Yeah.
But then he's just like, I think I have more to offer than just being your brother as much as I love you.
It's hard not to see it in the context of the greater show, which no one certainly has to do if they haven't seen it. But yeah, Ramen is like, he's like, goes throughout like brother and kind of just like a little dum dum, and you're like you like him, but
up on that,
yeah, and then spoiler, he becomes like the leader of the Ferengi. Like he's like he's
a stone cold.
This is
hottie.
like the moment, and it does mean a lot. So. Anyway, that's why I'm like so into this. Hot app.
Speaking of the moment, Delusions of Grandeur, folks. What do you rank this episode?
You're not going to hurt our feelings.
No.
In fact, if Star Wars wins, I'll feel great.
Yeah. I think for me it's like maybe an A-. Like I do like this episode a lot. I think I watched it the first time in like in a sort of a binge with like a bunch of other episodes, and I think that's how I'd prefer to watch it. Maybe like I don't like standalone. It's like a little weaker than I remembered, but I still really enjoyed it. Obviously, many great lines and memes. Love the like Worf Jadzia tension as well as the Miles Bashir tension, and yeah, I think I miss like Kira and a few other characters. Like it feels oh my gosh, sorry, who's the Cardassian Taylor's name? Sorry, I'm forgetting his name.
Garrick. The lizard boyfriend.
Thank you. Yes, Garrick. I feel like Garrick would be all over this in real. Like I just feel like he would be like scheming and dreaming like up in this episode. And I would love to see a little bit more of that. But yeah, definitely pro Union and like fun. I don't know. It is. It's like very goofy, but it has like heart to it. So yeah, I don't know.
Would A- on this scale be like an 8?
Yeah, or like I don't know, a little more than an 8, less than a 9, somewhere in there. Yeah.
I'm gonna put 8.01.
We're great with numbers.
Yeah,
my God,
so real strength along with space battles. Yeah.
I feel so bad.
No.
I don't
feel bad. No, don't feel bad.
So wait, I have a couple of follow-up questions that will determine my level of guilt. Does this go? So we're ranking them against each other, the Mos Eisley Cantina story and this episode of DS9, or is it like within all of Star Trek, where does this DS9 episode fall
Kelly?
For me? Or you know what I mean?
Kelly, follow your heart.
Seriously.
Kelly.
Follow your heart. Just
Kelly,
follow your
how
heart. There is no wrong answer.
It's more.
That's not true.
It's a little like I try to think of them independently. Like what is the quality of this episode as an episode? Obviously, there's context that you might have around it for things, but it's not necessarily. If you did want one to win, you could do it. But I think of it. I'm just like independently. What is this? Independently, what is the Star Wars? Yeah. So
okay,
and also. Sorry, I'm also of the mindset that because there's so much toxic discourse of being like, I want objective criticism. I want objective criticism. And I'm like, no, that's not possible. Art is inherently subjective because we bring our own experiences to it. And so, you like what you like and you feel the way that you feel. And, if your favorite Star Wars movie is The Rise of Skywalker, I want to give you a hug and be like,
my God.
Thank you.
Not.
Right.
I don't want to live in that world either, but we must strive for empathy.
I'm so good at forgetting.
I feel like that's the beauty of The Rise of Skywalker, though. It's like it delivered everything that those like chuds wanted, and they all hate it still. They all still think it's too woke, and that's kind of beautiful in a way.
It does feel like justice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the union aspects of this episode of DS9. I love Miles O'Brien. I really liked the Ferengis and getting to know them at all because I hadn't known them before. But it still was very goofy to me. Like it was still a goofball situation. So I think I would give it a 6.7.
Great.
Like it, yeah.
Because this might
goofiness goes, even though we're not comparing, it's goofy.
Kelly. Kelly, you're so good.
But not in the same way as the Mos Eisley Cantina one. It's goofy, but not danger. It didn't feel as dangerous to me. I think there was a lot of context that I needed in order to deeply love this episode of DS9. And I actually realized while we were talking that one of the things that contributes to me having not watched it is that I took a lot of philosophy classes where teachers would try to make us watch episodes of DS9.
Oh, no.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah. And like the last one that I remember is they would make us watch it in class so you could just not watch, which is probably what happened to me, which is why I had no memory of the show.
Mhm.
And like the last one I watched, like one of the professors looked kind of adjacent to one of the characters who was trying to sleep with like a woman who was much younger than him. And I was like, I'm out. Like you can't use like ethics and morality and entertainment in this way. I don't like it. Profoundly don't like it. And so I think that there's the important union stuff is like embedded in there, but when it's presented as nonsense a little bit, then I kind of get a little bit upset. So I would rather have them do a union episode and have it be more serious than have them do a union episode and have it be a goofball episode.
Goofballs. It's okay, Kayla. You're still our friends. And also, I can't do math really fast in my head, so this might mean Star Wars wins. So I think I win no matter what.
No, actually. Star Trek wins the week.
It's okay. We tried, Kelly.
We Don't Do Weddings has a paltry 7.3125 versus Bar Association's 7.9775. Although Kelly's analysis rules, and I support it.
It's true.
That's great. That's great. Have we missed anything else about these two properties?
I don't know.
Yeah. I do just
Excellent.
want to call it real quick in that DS9 episode, because I feel like we didn't talk about it. Just want to say the Cisco move of being like, hey, this strike needs to end. By the way, you don't even pay rent.
Oh, yeah.
was like
hardcore.
So powerful. He's so cool. Anyway, just wanted to call that out as a like, oh, there's like a different power sources that can like mess with this dynamic. So I need to call him out.
Speaking of power sources, Emily, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was so much fun. Thank you so much. For listeners of Trek Wars that might not be familiar with Delusions of Grandeur, where can they find you? What else would you like to plug, etc.?
Yeah.
Well, you can find us, I think, on most podcatchers these days. Your podcaster of choice, as we say in the biz. I don't know what we are just starting a new book.
We have Patreon.
We do have Patreon. Yeah, that's true.
Give them money
for only $7 American dollars.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
Give them some Latinum.
For $7 American dollars a month, you too can vote on what our future choices from the vast library of the Star Wars Extended Universe will be, and join our book chat, which is very lively and fun. And I think other than that, we're about to start the X-Wing book, Rogue Squadron.
Cool.
Tomorrow. So if you like Wedge Antilles and his beautiful eyebrows, you can join us on this journey.
Kenny sure does.
Through his
I truly do. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of Patreons, I would be remiss to not mention our fabulous patrons, which you can find at patreon.com/truckwarspod, where for $5 a month, you can get early versions of our episodes, extended versions of our episodes, and chat with us, like in the case of our friend Arizona Mark, who, in regards to our extended episode of Downfall of a Droid versus Spectre of the Gun, for our Dear Evan Hansen talk, Arizona Mark said, also, I ugly cry anytime I listen to a few of the songs from Dear Evan Hansen. They hit me way too deeply. This is in regards to me watching the Dear Evan Hansen movie and having to pull over and ugly cry aggressively into my steering wheel. That is not a bit. So thank you so much, Arizona Mark, for that. And
I like that Newsies came up today as well. Like the musicals tie into all of this.
We love music.
Excellent.
We love musicals.
We do love musicals, and we love our patrons, such as Timbo DeSosa, Emily Brycelove, Heidi Rogers, Kevin Miller, Arizona Mark, Austin Aaron, and lastly, but certainly not leastly, Joel T. Partner, who composed our Starship song. Our main theme was composed by Mr. Tosin Awofeso. Please go down to the show notes, click on his name, use some of its business. If you would like to see Aspen gesticulate, such as this, then you can hop over to our YouTube channel. Just click the show notes, youtube.com/@TrekWarsPod. Again, Delusions of Grandeur, folks, thank you so much. I say this to everyone, and by I say this to everyone, I say this to everyone that comes on the podcast. I love y'all. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And Aspen, I love you.
I love you.
And listeners, we love y'all so much. Thank you so much for listening. Live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.
Nailed it.